Great. Well, I want to welcome everyone to our Women Veterans Alliance. Our Wednesday webinar series takes place every Wednesday. I'm Melissa Washington. I am the CEO and founder of Women Veterans Alliance, and I'm also a Navy veteran. And one of the things, if you received the link to an app that we are utilizing, this is information. You don't have to use your phone. It can also be used on your computer. And just if you can just share with us how you are feeling about the presentation. Also, too, there's a button where you can like specific things on that app button. So with that, if you haven't heard of our organization, or if you are very much aware of our organization, we are a nationwide organization with our primary focus is to help you, the woman veteran, get connected with resources and each other. And one of the ways that we do that is through our Wednesday webinar series that is available to everyone. You don't have to be a paid member to participate in this webinar. But being a paid member, of course, there are a lot of great benefits, but also too, membership helps us keep things like this that we do at no cost to you. If you're interested in becoming a Women Veterans Alliance member, you can do so, visit our website and click on the join button. And if you're on social media, we are on all the social media platforms. Feel free to check us out on Facebook, like our page. We also too have a private Facebook group. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and also on YouTube. So feel free to connect with us on those various channels. If you haven't heard of the conference, it's coming up October 8th through the 10th. It is at the Tropicana, Las Vegas. This is our 6th one that we are having. It's a phenomenal 3-day weekend for women veterans, active duty, guard, reserve. People also bring their spouses. And it's an opportunity for you, again, to connect with other women, be connected to resources. People ask me, why is it called the Unconference? And I always like to share it's not your typical conference. We do provide headshots. We bring in horses for equine therapy. There's painting classes. The VA comes out with the VA, their van, and does flu shots, since we usually have our events in the fall. And it's just a great opportunity to be able to connect with other women. The advanced pricing is taking place right now. You can attend in person. If you're not able to make it to Las Vegas and you still want to participate, there is a virtual option. So you can visit womenveteransunconference.com to find out more information and to get registered, whether that's in person or if you want to attend virtually and still be connected with the attendees as well as our exhibitors via the app that we're going to be using for all the virtual attendees and in-person attendees. One of the things too is, if you're not familiar with Women Veterans Giving, is our nonprofit partner, and we have 2 programs through Women Veterans Giving. One of them is a small business award that we grant each year. To date, we've given her $10,000 to women veterans to help her expand or start her business. And that application period is going to be starting in the next coming month. So if you are a business owner looking to start a business, this is a great opportunity to get your application submitted. Also too, through Women Veterans Giving, we provide scholarships to attend not only our unconference, but other conferences. And one of the ways that we can do this is through, of course, donations. So if you are interested in helping women veterans get there, you can just text easily to 26989 and text WVG to donate, or you can visit womenveteransgiving.org to be able to donate to help our women veterans. All right, so we're ending our June series next week. Of course, it's the end of June already. I can't believe it's July. So next week, we've got Robin Grable, who's going to talk about finding you after the military. And we go into July and August. So we do have a bunch of more webinars that are coming up. If you're interested, go to our womenveteransalliance.org/webinars, and you can see all the ones coming up in July and August as part of our Wednesday webinar series. But we do have a couple additional things as well happening. Tomorrow, if you're not registered, or if you're interested to learn more about LinkedIn, or maybe you're already on LinkedIn, I am going to be presenting Leveraging LinkedIn, the webinar. We partnered with Women Veterans Rock, and that will be taking place tomorrow afternoon. It'll be 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. If you're interested in getting on there, I highly recommend. I'm going to be giving some fantastic tips on how to utilize LinkedIn as well. And you can find that also on our website. If you go to event calendar, click on tomorrow, and definitely get registered. I don't do these as often as I used to, so this is definitely an opportunity you don't want to miss to learn more about LinkedIn. And we are partnering again with Exum, and on July 1st, we are having a webinar on how you can learn, if you're a business owner, if you're interested in doing any exporting of your products. This is a great opportunity to learn how to do that. So again, this is opportunity to connect you with different resources. All right, so without further ado, as my phone is of course ringing, so all right, so Karen, I met Karen, I don't know, it's probably like 3-4 years ago. She was on our panel for the at our unconference, where we had a panel of women from veterans that are in media and entertainment, and she was one of the panelists, and it was a great opportunity to meet her. But I just want to read really quickly her bio. At age 18, she dropped out of beauty school to see the world. Carnival Cruises wouldn't hire her, so she joined the Navy. At age 23, in a VA hospital in Madison, Wisconsin, Karen was diagnosed with, and I'm going to probably, Karen, you're probably going to have to re-say this when you get on, the scleroderma, and was not expected to see her 30th birthday. Now she's 50, a stand-up comedian, and boy, does she have some stories to tell. And Karen, I'm so glad you're here, and I'm very much looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you for having me, Melissa. Hi. There I am. I just wanted to come on screen and say hi to everybody. I'm a comedian, so I'm used to having an audience. So I try to interact with you guys as much as possible. But thank you all for coming today. It is scleroderma. You were close. Scleroderma is a terrible name. It's bad for marketing. I think the guy who thought of it got fired. At least I hope he did. So I'm going to share my screen, and if you have any questions or fall behind, or either let me, use the house rules, or if somebody shouts out, "Hey, I missed that," or whatever, I'm not afraid to do that. So. So thank you, and let's get this started. And as they say, if you've seen one VA, you've seen only one VA. Each VA has its own procedures and formulary, but that's changed significantly since my first visit in 1994. And VAs appear to be trying to get on the same page, but effective change is slow. And sometimes our job, actually a lot more than sometimes, our job is to light a fire under the process. And it's not that easy. For some, it's a lifetime of work, and for others, it isn't a priority because they are not experiencing medical issues at the time. All right. Each time I visited a different VA, and with every new complication, it's like being hit by a tornado, a tiny, tiny tornado, of course. And when it does happen, I feel like I'm Dorothy being knocked into Oz. I've had to figure out my path to get what I need. I learned to speak the language of doctors when in Rome, right? Nurses and administrators. I had to learn the difference between confirmation bias research and actual research that follows the rules regarding variables and how many times a study has been done before determining if it's valid, and be open to changes as more research is done. But my biggest challenge has always been finding the right questions. And we all have been on the phone advocating for ourselves or our loved ones with an office clerk on the other side of the phone going through an outdated Rolodex who gets to decide our own healthcare needs. See, what if Dorothy had to make several trips to Oz? Eventually, she would learn some shortcuts, who to talk to, and avoid the poppy fields in the middle of the yellow brick road. Already on slide 3. A little about me. I've spent the last 27 years navigating the treacherous waters of American healthcare using private insurance, veterans healthcare, and Medicare. In every system, civilian or veterans, in order to get the treatment I continue to need, I have to learn to ask the right questions. I was 23 when I was first diagnosed with my service disability. And at the time, the VA was not set up for aging. It was set up for aging men. I had a diagnosis that many people did not survive. And the VA was not used to women, especially mouthy young women who didn't accept that their life was over. And it wasn't just the VA. I've had plenty of nightmare experiences outside hospitals using an HMO or a PPO. In this presentation, I will share my personal stories and how I cope with my health issues. And yes, I have 2 chronic illnesses that kill people. But those of you who don't have a chronic illness, you may find this helpful when you one day have to advocate for yourself or someone you love. Part of self-care is finding a way to cope with a changing healthcare system, new information due to research, aging complications, or diagnoses we could never predict. I continue to learn to adapt with new information and apply this information to work best for me. While receiving healthcare or assisting someone with their healthcare, it's difficult not to feel crazy and alone. Before I was diagnosed with my second chronic illness, I thought no one could understand what I was going through because what I have is so rare. And once I was diagnosed with sarcoidosis after symptoms were mistaken for scleroderma because they had similar symptoms, it opened my eyes to similarities in the struggle, symptoms to have a lot in common. And it's okay to laugh. You know how when you put that stuff on your lips and it starts to burn and that means it's working? Same thing. If you laugh and you feel weird, you're probably doing it right. My biggest influence has been the tragic comedy of the movie Airplane. The entire movie is a spoof of a dramatic movie, and the deadpan humor in the face of tragedy, well, it soothes my soul. The movie Stripes was the one influence on my decision to go into the military. It's a ridiculous movie, but it's got heart, and I had a huge crush on Harold Ramis. And yes, I know that's a picture of Bill Murray. My biggest inspiration is my son. He's 17 now, and I don't think I have to explain that. Life itself is a progressive degenerative illness that ends in death. We age, we lose mobility as we age, and we grieve. And I'll tie this together later in my presentation. The thing about tragic humor, which is a lot like gallows humor, well, I call it tragic humor because I don't believe I'm going to die. It's not because I believe that I'm immortal. I just believe that there is a future for me. When I've been in the most pain and frightened, I focus on what I have to look forward to once I get through this challenge. Well, what do I have to look forward to? Um, for instance, I will think about if I have to give up going out with my friends because I need to rest so I can go hiking the next day with my son. That's what I look for. That's how I look forward to things. This daydreaming girl is a trick I used when I was a kid. At night, I would lay in bed and stress out about my problems, school or fighting with my brother and sister, or pissing off Sister Kathleen in the fourth grade. And eventually I started to think about what my life would be like in the future. And I'd go to bed dreaming about what I would do when I was grown up. Like I could, be playing in a band or working as a doctor or whatever it was. It took me out of the present and knocked that stress out. And my secret to surviving so far with everything that I've had to manage is some finger crossing and a mantra: don't die, don't die. Actually, it's hunker down and remind myself of the future on the other side. And sometimes I just have to put this picture up, and that gets me through my worst days. It's also been my dog before I had my son. Dogs are helpful. They're not kids. The nice thing about kids is that once they reach 14, you're still not picking up their poo in the backyard. So, it's 6 to 1, a half a dozen or the other. Do you remember the show, The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt? It was about a girl who was kidnapped and kept in a bunker for 15 years. She said that she got through it thinking, I just need to get through the next 10 seconds. And if this doesn't sound like a good idea, consider your motivation. What would motivate you after you get through whatever the struggle? And I want to add something that's kind of not on my script right now, and that's everyone has a struggle. No one is worse than the other. It's not a struggle Olympics. I used to think that, I'm not as bad as other scleroderma patients, so my problems aren't as big, so I need to focus on other people. And that's not true. I found that when I took some time, acknowledged what was going on, and grieved the loss and accepted it and shared it with a friend, that that helped me get through it faster. And the other side of that is my friends would, and she was doing a wellness check on herself. She would call me and say, "Oh, I had a terrible day. My dog died. But what gets me through it is I think about you. I never have it as bad as you. Because if I were you, I'd kill myself." I mean, that's an actual phone call, and it's a good comedy bit. But if you're trying to come, even though we're sick, we can still be there for you. We're still the same friends that we were our before we had our chronic illnesses. I've had many near-death experiences, and I've been critically dead once. I've had procedures and been tested for things that are stranger than fiction. And when it comes to my health, when I get scared, I look for something funny. For example, I have upper endoscopies frequently. An upper endoscopy is where a camera is shoved down my throat to take a look at my upper digestive system. The first time I had one, I was scared to death. I was surrounded by doctors, and this procedure had to be done while I was conscious enough to follow directions and out of it enough not to feel the camera travel to my duodenum, which is like the top of your lower GI system. When the anesthesiologist began with my sedatives, I just started thinking of my anesthesiologist like he was a bartender. And I was in such a good mood after I left. I didn't remember a thing. But the next one I had, I just joked about going to see my bartender again. And here is a public service announcement that I'm required to share with each. This court order reminds that I must disclose this warning when talking about upper endoscopies. Please allow me to be your cautionary tale. Do not get jalapeno poppers in the drive-thru on the way home from your endoscopy. You will feel great, and you think that you're swallowing it. It's going down great, but it's not. And well, that's my court order. Thank you. Maybe not all of us are veterans, and we may be completely healthy, have illnesses or symptoms, but we all have more in common than we might think. I don't have a foolproof system. I definitely do not have all the answers, but my goal is to inspire your inner advocate. I have experiences I'm going to share along with my opinions. Take what you can, leave behind what you don't need. Well, how did we get here? I was diagnosed in the mid-90s. There was no Google to look things up. I tried some natural alternative solutions that sometimes, actually most of the time, made things worse. American culture is tough. We work hard and we play hard, and any excuse to do otherwise is unacceptable unless you need to have an eye popped back into your socket. Ignoring larger symptoms of a problem is the way in the United States. It has a Mandalore feel to it. If someone doesn't look sick or injured, we've been conditioned to believe they're faking their injury or illness, except when it comes to ourselves, because we know that we're telling the truth. We're told that disability fraud and unemployment fraud are rampant in this country. It's been said so much, we're okay commenting behind someone's back or pointing out to our friends with disabilities, "Hey, look at her. She looks fine. She's not really sick. Unlike you, she's faking." And if I had a nickel for everyone I wanted to punch in the throat for whispering that to me, I'd be rich. I've done these things. I bring this up because it's just a gut reaction. And in fact, I don't think I would have believed scleroderma was a real thing if my hands were not so dramatically effective. That's how convinced I was that this couldn't be real while I had it. Here in America, we work hard and we play hard. Disability and chronic illness is only acknowledged if it meets the standards of strangers. I have a great deal of guilt because I have better disability benefits than most American citizens due to my veteran status. When talking about it, people love to tell me how much more deserving I am than other American citizens on Social Security because I am service connected. I do receive a nice disability benefit from the VA each month. My medication is free, and if I need to stay in the hospital, my discharge date is not dependent upon the maximum allowed by my health insurance. A home loan is a choice. Free parking is a choice, but my diagnosis is not a choice. Healthcare is a human right. Sure, I'm a veteran. Give me a low interest rate on a home loan and free parking, but those decisions involve a choice. All sorts of opinions out there about how universal health care or single payer option will cause rationing of services, not because that will happen, but because that is the narrative that continues the lie. We're soaking in it. I've got news for everyone, including me. Healthcare is being rationed, and we all have an abusive relationship with insurance companies, and we are in love. Every person in this country should be entitled to the medical care they need, not what they can afford. And I'm really tired of people trying to defend this with my veteran status. Veteran friends and family who die because they are denied services. If patients with chronic illnesses had the lobbying power insurance companies have, people would be getting effective treatment. Everyone. Here's one example. It's my example. And I put this example as one patient with scleroderma in the VA healthcare system, and one has private or group health insurance. The problem, you may be able to tell from my speaking that I don't pronounce words properly. Scleroderma has some complications that involve the mouth. Chronic movement of teeth extending far enough to impede speech, eating, and ability to maintain a healthy mouth due to scleroderma. Scleroderma causes the roots of teeth to loosen, and veterans who do not have a high enough disability service rating do not get dental care from Veterans Health Care. Sure, if there's a dental emergency and you need a crown and you have no dental insurance or money to pay for it, come on down to your local VA and we'll pull that troublesome tooth right out. Sure, we could insert a crown or do a root canal, but you can always get dentures. Don't worry about further risk of infection or your teeth becoming crooked, impede your ability to chew food or maintain dental health. Pulling that tooth out is all you're entitled to, and it's not that hard to live with it, is it? But back to my examples. Okay, spoiler alert, it's based on my experience. I already explained that. All right. I needed braces to get my teeth back inside my mouth. Scleroderma has caused a bucktooth set of teeth on both the bottom and the top. Now, anyone with a service-connected disability knows that the VA is supposed to cover every cent of treatment for anything related to that service-connected disability. It's in writing. I went all the way up the chain of command with consults or requests for braces from the VA rheumatology department and a world-renowned rheumatologist who testified emphatically with research directly connected to the condition that braces were the only treatment. So I kept going all the way up to the chief of dental in the Desert Pacific Veterans Healthcare. He also agreed I needed braces, but he told me it was against the law to approve it. He recommended that I get the braces on my own, submitted as a case study to the VA Healthcare Manual Department in Virginia. You know that thick book that they used to pass out every year, and now they just give us a PDF online? And maybe they will change this braces thing in a few years, or just wait and see. But in the meantime, you can have all the dry mouth ointments and speech therapy your heart desires. Okay, he didn't word it that way. Just to kind of repeat something, there is a law against providing braces for veterans. And the reason is because braces are associated with a pre-existing condition. So at the time, I didn't have the money to pay for braces for me. It was becoming more difficult to speak clearly. Now I'm a comedian, and at the time, it became worse on a daily basis. I visited speech therapy, and there was no way to compensate with speech therapy either. And she told me this sort of thing is not uncommon. I am not the only veteran who has a service-connected disability that's causing their teeth to move around, have trouble talking, and come in for speech therapy in lieu of braces, which would fix that problem. Now imagine that not being able to close your mouth for 24 hours a day. It's not just uncomfortable. Dry mouth impedes our mouth's ability to fight plaque and cavities. Eventually, it causes teeth to become so fragile they shatter. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm so vain. But yes, I am. Our mouths are also the openings to our digestive tract. If you have a car with a gas tank that will not close properly, the opening would break down and cause bigger and more expensive problems further down in the car's fuel system. Oh, by the way, I did get Invisaligns. because braces are likely to cause injury and increase the risk of infections. And I got Invisaligns, an extra $172 a month didn't go well with my finances. So I was, in quotes, lucky because I could qualify for high interest loans to cover my butt every month. The same could be said for dental care outside the VA. If you have a few thousand lying around, orthodontic care isn't a problem. But if you don't have dental insurance or the means to pay for basic health care, you can go ahead and let the tooth rot inside your head until the pain becomes unbearable and some doctor in an ER pulls it out after an abscess infects the bone. Compared it with VA healthcare versus private or group health insurance and got the same result. That's just one simple fix and a large expense up front. But in the back end saves money. But we're conditioned not to think about the long term. We look at what we have to pay now. So we scour the internet for home remedies. Not there yet. We scour the net for home remedies and doubt doctors. More than a few occasions, my doctors have been and continue to be forced to find a way to convince me to live with an untreated condition I can't afford. And it's livable because really, Karen, dry ointments aren't that inconvenient. And you're disabled anyway, so you don't really need the ability to speak clearly. I mean, come on, that comedian thing was cute, but it's really not a job. I've been a comedian for 8 years, which really isn't that long, but it sounds like a long time. So that's just one condition, completely fixable. I have a mountain of problems, so-called small problems that add up to one big problem in the future. And military medical care gets a bad rap. And that's because it sucked. And when I was in, it was entirely based on males, which I'm sure you all know. I just a quick survey. I'd like to ask anyone who got out recently if they felt that way too. I'm gonna take myself off the share screen for a moment and just show me a raise of hands. Hi, by the way. Okay, thank you. Okay, a few of you. Great. I hope things are changing.
Hey, Karen, we just got some feedback that the slides weren't moving and they was still stuck on Madge with
Oh, okay.
I think palm olive or but it was, and I don't know if you were supposed to go
Got it.
forward, just to let you know.
Got it. Thank you. It's doing something weird. Hold on a moment, please. You know what? You're going to see you're going to be able to see the previews. We're just going to do it this way. All right. Thank you. Away, we've done that. There's the palm olive screen. Okay. I don't have much left.
And you just have about what, 2 or 3 slides left?
Okay. Yes.
Or you can just go ahead and just talk.
Okay. There we go. All right. I just was not selecting the proper screen. I'm sorry. Okay. I spent the last 2 years of my time in the Navy referred to as a sick babe commando, crazy female, and malingerer. After I got out of the Navy, as was mentioned in my introduction, I was immediately diagnosed with scleroderma. It took 2 years, 3 application attempts, and a letter to my member of Congress before receiving my 100% service-connected benefits. After a bit of a fight, I was diagnosed with sarcoidosis later on, using something we refer to as golden insurance. And I'm on my 3rd attempt to add this to my service-connected disability. Now, mind you, this is 27 years later. Now, there's a vast difference in the levels of care people get in the United States. I'm going to give you a health story. And I'm going to take it off share screen, and you're going to watch me read a script. All right. So there are vast differences in the level of care people get in the United States. When my son was born, the VA gave me a letter that basically said, the VA is responsible for payment for medical care for this veteran related to her pregnancy. It's the equivalent to a golden ticket. My son was born 8 weeks early because my blood pressure was so high. I was blind in my right eye and losing the vision in my left. After seeing local specialists who were stumped but knew my life was in danger, they sent me to Mary Birch Hospital for Women. The lobby looked like a hotel. I had a private room, 24-hour meal service, and really good food that was actually healthy. I know, imagine that, hospital food that's actually healthy. It's crazy, right? Well, this hospital was so good that they had recently delivered a baby at 25 weeks. There was no hours of waiting until I got my room. I walked in the door and my feet were in stirrups in less than 30 minutes. My son was delivered by emergency C-section in 48 hours later because my internal organs were crashing. It was a tough recovery for both of us. I regained my sight with a small change in my right eye due to a detached retina. My son was in the NICU for 28 days, and he is now a healthy 17-year-old who is on the senior varsity wrestling team class of 2022. In 2007, I was in the ER as a patient. The nurse who was assigned to me was amazing, and we got to talking and discovered we had the same kind of pregnancy emergency. She too went blind, but in both of her eyes, on her way to the hospital. You see, she passed hospital emergency rooms because her health insurance told her and her husband the delivery of her child would not be covered at any other hospital. So instead of going to the nearest hospital, she and her husband drove an additional hour. And I've had this reaction, but Karen, really, an hour? Really? It wasn't that inconvenient. Well, we're women. We all know that when a pregnant woman is about to become preeclamptic, and for those of you who don't know what preeclampsis is, that's when a pregnant woman's blood pressure is so high, her organs will crash and she will pass out and never wake up. So by the time she arrived to her hospital, she was completely blind and she had lost her son. She had a rough recovery, but she never regained sight in one eye, and she was left with a heart condition that required very expensive medicine. What she didn't know is that if she had walked into any hospital blind in one eye with high blood pressure, they could not release her. I know this because the ophthalmologist I saw locally sent me to two ophthalmologists who were doing a clinic at the VA. So I was using and he would have sent anyone there to see these ophthalmologists because they were very well known in San Diego. They were there only to see the rare cases that the San Diego VA had to offer. They were kind of a big deal, and it was the only day of the month they were there. After seeing my vitals and a quick exam, one of them called Mary Birch Hospital to see if they should keep me at the VA and call in an OBGYN to deliver my baby at the VA. And the other was consulting with the emergency room about where to put, and this is at the VA, where to put me because they were not going to let me leave because my organs could crash on the way to the hospital. The only cure to save my life was to stop the pregnancy. Now back to my cohort, the nurse. Her husband didn't have healthcare offered at his job. She was uninsurable because the damage done during her pregnancy was now a pre-existing condition. This was 2007, pre-ACA. She has a damaged heart that requires medication. She could not afford health insurance, but if she was employed and insurance was offered, denying pre-existing conditions was against the law. So she went back to work full-time as a nurse so she could get the medicine she needed to stay alive. Now, this is the part where I feel I'm very lucky because unlike most Americans, I have an income no matter what due to my disability benefits at the VA. In her case, she would have been able to collect Social Security and receive disability benefits. Social Security is about $1,200 a month in 2021. I'm not sure what it was in 2007. And in addition to having to be on disability and receive less than $1,200 a month, she would not have been eligible for Medicare for 6 months into her disability decision. And if her husband made over a certain amount, her disability benefits would stop. And that's actually still true today. One could argue that she's not a veteran, and that's true. Back in 2007, we didn't value nurses like we do today. They're frontline workers who risk their lives every day with no hazard pay, 12 hours a day that really comes to 14 with turnover and charting with a lunch break on paper, but a 5-minute break in real life. So not only did she lose her 5th child and nearly died, she had to be the breadwinner so she and her family could have health care, all because she had to drive 1 hour longer than I did. And I was in the ER being cared by her with my golden insurance, a woman who experienced the same health problems, and her baby is dead while mine is at home playing Legos. Like, somebody has to do something about this. there's no way to prove a negative. Had she been able to go to the nearest hospital, we don't know for sure if her baby would not have died, or she might have had a better life, or not have had the life-threatening heart damage. But wouldn't it have been nice to have a better chance of a healthy delivery and recovery? Think about it. You're pregnant, becoming blind while driving an extra hour to the hospital, and maybe you would stop at a hospital, but you couldn't possibly know her financial situation. One setback for her could mean homelessness. In my case, I knew that if we didn't have the access we did, we wouldn't have to sell our home to pay for that amazing healthcare. When you have to go to the VA or your hospital of choice, um, this is my call to action. It really starts with us. These are things that I have done to help me try and cope with the inequality and unnecessary medical complications that I've seen in the last 27 years. A lot of it has been done to me, but I've also, I'm not the only person that the VA or private healthcare has denied things to. So find a spot where you can have a moment to gather your thoughts. Anyone I know who is going to the VA for the first time, I tell them to find a restroom, it doesn't have to be a private restroom. It could be one that, is quiet during a certain time of the day. I either go to the women's clinic, or there's another clinic that I go to regularly where I see them every 3 months, and their bathroom is like in the back. And it's helpful for women too, because sometimes we need to find a quiet place to calm down. Gosh, that was really sexist what I just said. Men feel that too, so men do the same. I now dealing with VA employees, I have, and those of you who are sailors, really anyone in the military probably does have a rich vocabulary of swear words. And it took me a long time to understand that, yes, there are employees who are completely incompetent, but there are many employees who have tried to help others, and they've hit so many walls trying to get treatment for people. They've just become disheartened, and it feels like they're not doing their job. Like, as I say in there, you have no idea how many veterans they've had to say no to. And I don't think that it's been my observation that employees of the VA don't take joy in that. As I said in the beginning, these are my observations, and I don't want to lessen that. The other thing that I had to overcome was the judgment I had. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and we heard a lot of things like welfare fraud and welfare queens, and you're not really sick. That person doesn't really have disabilities. And yes, fraud does happen, but I feel like it's in my lexicon, kind of like how I just mentioned that women need places to themselves, and completely disregard men off the top of my head, because in my head growing up, doctors were men, and people in authority were men, and I'm still working on that. Like I said, I'm 50. It's so I have those biases, and it was tough for me to be compassionate to others and try and have empathy, which makes me sound like a terrible person. I think that most people on that level are not as awful as I am, but I do believe that we're human, and I'm sure that maybe most of us feel something like that sometimes. I used to be consumed by my challenges. I had to see a psychiatrist. I cannot stress mental health enough. I've had some pretty lousy people, and they were obviously doctors who categorized me in certain ways, as they do with women. But in 27 years, I've found people that I can talk to and process things with, and allow me not to be consumed by my challenges. I used to identify myself as, I am scleroderma, and I'm not. I'm this person. The other thing I really had to work on was not exploding. It's tough. And there's nothing like a bag of candy that, with an apology later, if they deserve it, of course, will not, that helps. I've done that. I've gone off on people and I've come back, and they've helped me in the future. Today's assholes are tomorrow's heroes. So we're going to have to teach people sometimes. We may not, things are changing, but I don't know if any of you have had something that you've had to tell doctors that have worked for you in the past and that you'd like to use again. And as staff changes, as doctors move to different hospitals, we're going to be constantly re-educating, or it's going to feel like re-educating and repeating like our origin story to why we're at the VA and something that happened to us, that, what medical condition that happened to us 10 years ago that they need to have in the back of their mind while they're prescribing my medical care today. That's very important. And it took me a while to realize that there's over 100 chronic illnesses like the ones I have. And doctors don't always get the education to apply to understand what we need. And some are open. Like I was at the Long Beach Hospital, or the Long Beach VA Hospital. And I have a power port. As if you know about chemotherapy, that's where they put your infusions. And that's where I put all my IVs. And most people who have that have veins that are blown. If you go into an emergency room, every nurse has tried to talk me out of using my port because they didn't know how to start an IV in my port. It's an entirely different kind of flying because of the location. So eventually, during a hospital stay, I talked to the head nurse, or the charge nurse of the department I was in, and I asked him to bring in nurses and have them start IVs on me and practice. And they did. I would, not all in one day. I was there for like 45 days due to a misdiagnosis. And I taught that department how, and it was a long care team. And I taught them how to put in an infusion IV, how to start an IV that way, because they're always going to go for your, that spot in your elbow. And after so many blood sticks, it's not going to work. And so, yes, you have to explain to nurses sometimes that they can't use that vein because it doesn't work. Or what I do is I save that vein only for blood draws in the blood draw clinic, which really pisses off nurses, but you know what? It's not their arm. And like I said before, healthcare is a lifetime of self-advocacy. And really, the bottom line is you've got this. We're all stronger than we think we are. Thank you for watching, and thank you for putting up with my technical difficulties. It's been a joy. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or you can find me on social media at It's Karen Vasquez.
It looks like there are a couple comments, questions.
I see. Let me open up the chat.
Yep, in the chat.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not.
It's okay.
Do you see one? Can you read them to me?
Absolutely. So a question was asked if anything's related to toxic exposure while you were in the Navy.
Yes, it was. When I was 19, when I was 20, I was one of the first two women in a boat bay at in Virginia. And we did fiberglass bodywork on boats. They did not want to buy safety equipment for us because we were very tiny and they only had medium and large. So we had to prove ourselves that we could work as hard as the men. It became a battle of the sexes and we won. Yes, I was exposed to fiberglass epoxies, the red lead paint that was taken off the sides of boats that year, and possibly asbestos. And scleroderma and sarcoidosis are both, research is coming, more research is pointing to that it's definitely toxic chemicals or something in the environment, possibly with a genetic predisposition. Did I make that answer more complicated than it needed to be?
I feel you definitely answered it. And also too with that, so with that, and you might have touched on a little bit during your presentation, but did you have to fight the VA to get 100%? I mean, even though it was clearly what had happened there and you were exposed to.
Yes. So I was in Wisconsin going to college, and I only had the early stages of it, and I didn't really think it was anything that bad. So when my first attempt was 40%, and I talked to my local veteran service officer, and he said, no, for this condition, apply again. So I did apply, and that brought it up to 60%. And then he had me write a letter to my congressman, and a couple months later, I got the 100% service-connected disability. So I think the first answer is always going to be lowball. Then you've got to apply again, and don't be afraid, and definitely contact your congressperson because they are effective. I'm actually working with Adam Schiff, I'm throwing around names. We're working on, so I have Chant VA, which is an insurance policy for the dependents of disabled veterans. And the problem with that is no one takes it for surgery. And the veteran has to come up with cash to pay for that surgery. And in my son's case, he's having shoulder surgery next week. And I had to come up with $20,000 up front. And it's all because they don't contract with Chant VA. Well, no one contracts with Chant VA because it's a prepaid benefit provided by the Veterans Administration. And I reached out to his office with an email, and I was contacted the following Monday. And if yours aren't as attentive, be persistent. I think persistence is the key.
Absolutely. I wanted to share Darylyn's comment. She said, that was a great presentation. I'm so sorry about your chronic condition, but so honored that you would share your wisdom and experience with us.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, that was really nice.
I thought that'd be a great way to end. And
Yeah.
I'm sure all the ladies on the call 100% agree with that. So regardless of all the other challenges, thank you for sharing your story. Oh, and there she is. She's waving.
Oh, thank you, Geraldine.
And tell us real quickly before we end, how can we find you? What social media platforms are you on?
I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at It's Karen Vasquez. So ITSKAREN VASQUEZ, and I'll go ahead and put it in the chat.
And you're still doing because you're down in LA and you're still doing stand-up comedy, right?
Yes, I just had my last show. I'm typing on my laptop. I just had my last show on Friday, and I'm going to be off for a few weeks, but I will be ramping it up again soon. So yeah. So, and sometimes I also do Zoom shows. So if you're not in the area, you can find me there as well.
Awesome. Oh, thank you. She put it in the chat. And then I'll make sure too, when I send out the link to everyone here, that I'll put her links to her social media on there as well, in addition to the YouTube video.
Thank you.
All right. Well, again, so thank you, Karen, so much. And thank you all for attending today.
Thank you.